The Cleveland Browns are no strangers to quarterback drama, but what's unfolded behind closed doors and now spilling into the public eye isn't your usual QB controversy. It's bigger, deeper, and more explosive than anyone expected. At the center of it is rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders, a fifth-round draft pick who was supposed to ride the bench, stay quiet, and wait his turn. Instead, he sparked a firestorm that's now engulfed not only the Browns' quarterback room, but the entire NFL narrative machine. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. What was once a quiet rookie story has now transformed into a full-blown scandal, ignited by one thing: a leaked, heavily edited audio clip from Shedeur's pre-draft interview with the New York Giants. The clip, which surfaced just weeks into Brown's training camp, immediately raised red flags. It painted Sanders in a negative light, selectively framing him as arrogant and uncoachable, a dangerous label for a quarterback, especially one already viewed as non-traditional thanks to his famous last name and outspoken father, Deion Sanders. But the clip wasn't the full story. Not even close. As calls grew louder for the Giants to release the entire interview, fans, analysts, and even former players began to piece together what was really going on. The leak wasn't just an accidental PR fumble. It looked and sounded like a targeted character attack, a premeditated attempt to shape the narrative around Sanders as something other than what he truly is: poised, prepared, and deeply respected within the Browns facility. And make no mistake, inside the Browns organization, the perception of Sanders couldn't be more different from the one being peddled online. Veterans on the team have privately referred to him as franchise level. Coaches have reportedly been blown away by his presence in the huddle, his advanced understanding of NFL defenses, and his ability to keep his composure under pressure. He's not just managing the offense in practice, he's elevating it. Multiple sources inside the facility have confirmed that Sanders' pocket awareness and decision-making are years ahead of where most rookies typically land. He's processing progressions quickly, throwing receivers open, and showing an uncanny ability to avoid pressure without panicking. These are the traits of a long-term starter, not a clipboard holder, which makes the leak all the more suspicious. If Sanders were struggling in camp, maybe the interview audio wouldn't feel so pointed. But he's not. He's thriving. And that's exactly what makes the whole situation so damning. The edited footage didn't just paint a false picture of his personality. It came at a moment when Sanders was starting to generate real momentum. And if you've been around the NFL long enough, you know what that timing usually means. Someone, somewhere, is trying to pump the brakes. And let's be honest, Sanders was never just any rookie. His last name alone was enough to spark discomfort among old-school executives. Deion Sanders, his father, has spent the last few years redefining how athletes control their image, speak their truth, and push back against traditional sports media. He's loud, unapologetic, and fiercely independent. And Shedeur? He's got that same fire, but he channels it differently. He's not doing it for the cameras. He's doing it in the film room, the weight room, and most visibly on the practice field, which is why the Browns coaching staff has found themselves in a tricky position. On paper, Shedeur was supposed to be a developmental prospect, a guy who could sit behind Deshaun Watson and maybe Kenny Pickett while he got up to speed. But that plan didn't account for reality, namely, the fact that Shedeur might already be the best quarterback on the roster, and the Browns, whether they want to admit it or not, are quickly running out of excuses not to act on it. Financially, of course, the situation is delicate. Watson's contract is one of the most expensive and controversial in NFL history. Benching him, even temporarily, would raise a million questions the Browns don't want to answer. But from a purely football perspective, there's a growing sense that Sanders is ready now. And not just ready to play, ready to lead. His rookie contract offers rare value. While Watson eats up a massive portion of the cap, Sanders gives the team flexibility, upside, and control at a fraction of the price. That's not just convenient. In a salary cap league, it's gold, and the Browns know it. So why the hesitation? Part of it, no doubt, is optics. Giving a fifth-round rookie the keys to the franchise means acknowledging that the scouting world might have gotten it wrong. That politics, not performance, dictated where Sanders landed in the draft. And that's a bitter pill for NFL decision-makers to swallow. Because let's not forget, there were whispers long before the audio leaked that teams were intentionally avoiding Sanders due to his brand, his media savvy, and the looming presence of his father. It's not the first time that players with strong personalities and public platforms have been quietly downgraded behind the scenes. But this time, the evidence is surfacing in real time. Ryan Clark, a respected analyst and former NFL safety, even hinted that he'd heard stories about Sanders' draft stock being deliberately tanked. Not because of talent, but because of politics. Because he wasn't the kind of quarterback you could control. Because he came into the league knowing his worth. That makes certain execs nervous. And nervous execs tend to do what they can to steer narratives. But Shedeur, he just keeps showing up, keeps doing the work, keeps letting the tape speak louder than the noise. And now the question is no longer, is this kid for real? The question is, how long can the Browns afford to keep pretending he's not? The quarterback room is already shifting. Teammates have started gravitating towards Sanders during drills. Wide receivers have been vocal about how quickly he releases the ball, how precise his timing is, how clean his footwork is in play action. There's no awkward rookie energy here, no learning curve excuses. He's acting like a starter, and more importantly, playing like one. Meanwhile, the media is starting to shift its tone. The leak was supposed to damage his reputation. Instead, it made him more visible, more compelling. It turned him into a symbol of integrity, of unfair scrutiny, of what happens when young black quarterbacks who challenge a mold refuse to shrink to fit it. And this is where things take a bigger turn. Because this isn't just about Sanders anymore. This is about how the NFL handles difference. It's about how narrative, perception, and control still shape careers more than tape does. Sanders' story is a case study in what happens when an athlete challenges the unwritten rules, when he brings talent, but also voice, when he refuses to be reduced to a talking point. And yet, despite the drama, despite the politics, despite the leaked audio and the headlines, it's the quiet things that define Shedeur most. The calm under pressure, the leadership in the huddle, the silence in response to provocation, the way he treats every practice rep like it's a playoff game. That's what Browns veterans are seeing. That's what coaches are starting to believe in. And that's why the decision looming over this team is no longer just a football one. It's a cultural one. Do they follow the numbers, the tape, the locker room? Or do they protect the narrative? Because the leaked audio may have been meant to cast doubt. Instead, it revealed the truth. Shedeur Sanders isn't just here to play football. He's here to change it. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask to be the face of a cultural shift in the NFL. He didn't campaign for attention. He didn't tweet his way into headlines. And yet, here he is, sitting at the epicenter of a conversation that goes far beyond playbooks and preseason depth charts. The leaked audio may have pulled back the curtain, but what it exposed wasn't just the shady inner workings of one team's evaluation. It revealed how uncomfortable the league still is with players who arrive polished, principled, and unapologetically themselves. This situation is no longer about whether Shedeur Sanders can throw a deep-out route or extend a play on 3rd and long. That part has already been answered in practice reports, in teammate testimonials, and in the eyes of the coaches who watch him make NFL-caliber decisions with the poise of a 10-year vet. The bigger story now is why some people in powerful rooms tried so hard to make sure he was never in a position to show it. You want to talk about trust in the draft process? Let's start there. NFL teams sell the draft as a meritocracy. Best player available. Film doesn't lie. Earn your spot. But Sanders' case shattered the illusion. When an edited interview clip gets leaked months after draft day, after the rookie starts gaining momentum, it's hard not to connect the dots. Someone saw Shedeur becoming a threat to the status quo, and they tried to shut the door before it could fully open. It backfired, of course, but it also exposed a deeper rot in the system, that not all players are judged by the same standard. Because let's be honest, if Shedeur's last name were Smith instead of Sanders, we wouldn't be here. There would be no leaked tape, no manufactured controversy, no coded comment about brand distractions or too much confidence. Instead, we'd be talking about how a late-round gem is climbing the ranks with leadership and efficiency. But the NFL is still uncomfortable with quarterbacks who come in with their own voice. And Shedeur, he arrived with a voice and a vision. And yet, through all of this, he's kept it professional. That's what's striking. The temptation to punch back must be enormous, to call out the hypocrisy, to drag the giants, to weaponize his growing platform. But Shedeur doesn't flinch. He absorbs it, processes it, and returns to the field with sharper reads and cleaner throws. That level of emotional control isn't just rare. It's dangerous to those trying to undermine him, because you can't provoke what doesn't react. While the NFL spins its wheels deciding how to frame this moment, Shedeur continues doing what the great ones do, stack wins behind the scenes. He's quietly building influence in the locker room. Players trust him. Coaches increasingly rely on him. And the fans? They're watching closely. What's also notable is how the younger players have gravitated toward him. For rookies and second-year guys, Sanders has become a model for how to handle pressure. He's not trying to be a locker room politician. He's not sucking up to the vets. He just leads by example. He's helping guys study the playbook, offering encouragement after a drop pass, staying after practice with third-string receivers to get extra reps. These moments don't make headlines, but they build legacy, and the league is starting to feel it. Front office execs across the NFL are now whispering about how they may have missed, how they were too cautious, too traditional, too easily swayed by external narratives. Some are already quietly prepping future trade packages. Should Cleveland decide they can't hold both Sanders and Watson long-term? Because make no mistake, the league moves fast when it senses opportunity. And right now, every team without a quarterback is watching the story like it's the last episode of a thriller series. And speaking of Cleveland, this could be the biggest crossroads a franchise has faced since drafting Baker Mayfield. Only this time, the stakes are higher. The fan base is no longer satisfied with potential. They want results. And when they see one quarterback commanding the field while the other struggles to connect, the question becomes impossible to avoid. What are we waiting for? The Browns are in a unique position. They're not rebuilding. They have a talented roster. The defense is aggressive. The offensive line is sturdy. The weapons are capable. This team is built to win now. And that's the kicker. If Shedeur continues to be the best quarterback on the field, then every day they don't start him is a wasted day of opportunity, a day where ego outweighs outcome. But there's another under-discussed angle here: marketing and the future fan engagement. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a quarterback. He's a brand builder, not in the superficial, influencer sense, in the strategic, long-game sense. He understands image. He understands community. He knows how to connect. The Browns have long struggled to create a quarterback identity that fans can rally behind. Sanders offers it in spades. He's showing up at youth events, making appearances in the community, without PR handlers needing to drag him there. He's building his relationship with the city the right way, through presence, not just performance. That matters, especially in a place like Cleveland, where loyalty is everything. Browns fans will ride for a quarterback who shows he cares, not just about stats, but about them. There's already buzz around the city. Jerseys are selling. Social media mentions are climbing. Every clip from training camp featuring Shedeur gets more engagement than the starters. Whether the front office wants to admit it or not, the movement has begun. And movements are hard to stop. What's more, there's a deeper symbolic element at play. In an NFL still struggling to evolve past its rigid, often sanitized quarterback archetypes, Shedeur Sanders represents something new. He's not afraid to show his personality, not afraid to wear a chain, speak with conviction, or acknowledge his heritage. But he also isn't playing into the media's caricature of who he's supposed to be. He's smart, grounded, and locked in. That confuses the system. It doesn't know where to place him. Too much confidence? No. He's humble in interviews. Too flashy? No. His work ethic is bulletproof. Too inexperienced? No. He's out-processing veterans in film study. When a player checks every box but still makes people uncomfortable, that's when you know the issue isn't him. It's them. The Shedeur Sanders story is no longer a side plot. It's becoming the plot. The leaked audio wasn't the climax. It was the catalyst. It pulled back the veil and showed fans just how much narrative manipulation can shape or sabotage a career. But in this case, it backfired spectacularly because the public didn't recoil. They rallied. They demanded more footage, more facts, more fairness. And through it all, Shedeur kept climbing. So here we are. The Browns have a decision to make, not just about depth charts or contracts, but about identity. Do they want to be the team that plays it safe, sticks to the script, and lets fear steer the ship? Or do they want to be the team that recognizes when a generational shift is knocking and has the guts to open the door? Because make no mistake, Shedeur Sanders is that shift. He's not asking for the keys. He's proving he already knows how to drive. The audio leak was supposed to bury him. Instead, it exposed a truth that can't be re-edited, redacted, or ignored. Shedeur Sanders isn't next. He's now. Shedeur Sanders may be a rookie, but the ripple effects he's creating stretch far beyond Cleveland and far beyond football. As more details emerge about the edited Giants interview, insiders across the league are beginning to realize the situation has evolved into a case study in power, perception, and control. And Shedeur, whether he asked for it or not, has become the test subject in a very public experiment. What happens when a player won't conform to the NFL's unwritten rules? The NFL thrives on image. It builds narratives before players even step onto the field. Quarterbacks, in particular, are expected to fit a specific mold. Clean-cut, deferential, media-safe, and unthreatening in personality. Confidence is okay, but only in the form of cliché-riddled press conferences. Swagger is tolerated, as long as it's carefully packaged. Anything more? That's when problems arise. That's when you get labels like cocky, immature, or a distraction. Shedeur Sanders doesn't fit in that box. And more importantly, he doesn't try to. He's composed, respectful, and media savvy. But he's not interested in diluting himself for anyone's comfort. He's not playing a role. He's being himself. And in today's NFL, where authenticity is still viewed as risky unless it aligns with the corporate machine, that kind of self-possession feels dangerous to some. But it's also exactly what a new generation of fans is craving. Younger audiences connect with athletes who show who they are, not just what they do. They want to know what you believe, what drives you, what makes you tick outside of the game. And Shedeur, for all his discipline and professionalism, doesn't hide his personality. He doesn't mask his confidence. And most crucially, he doesn't apologize for his upbringing. The son of Deion Sanders doesn't try to escape his shadow. He stands proudly in it and still manages to cast one his own. That's not arrogance. That's legacy with perspective. And this is where things get even more layered. Because legacy in the NFL is a double-edged sword. It gives you access, but it also makes you a target. Being the son of a Hall of Famer opens doors. But it also brings skepticism, especially if that Hall of Famer has spent the last decade shaking up traditional football culture. Deion Sanders has become a lightning rod in his own right, breaking coaching norms, challenging media narratives, and empowering athletes to think beyond the game. And whether fair or not, Shedeur carries all that energy into every meeting, every media appearance, and every snap. Some execs and scouts reportedly labeled Shedeur too media-aware during the draft process. But what does that even mean? That he understands how the league works? That he's strategic about his brand? That he won't allow himself to be silenced or misrepresented? If that's a flaw, it's only a flaw in a system that still wants players to stay in line. And yet, despite the behind-the-scenes politics, Sanders is winning in the one place that still matters most, the locker room. In team culture, authenticity spreads fast. Players know when someone's fake. They know when someone's angling for the spotlight or playing the corporate game. Shedeur's greatest weapon might be that he's not trying to win people over. He just is. He shows up. He works. He listens. He leads. He takes notes like a backup, but throws like a starter. And in a league where trust has to be earned one rep at a time, that's how you build real equity. Word around the league is that Browns veterans, some of whom were initially wary of the Deion Jr. label, have come around completely. One insider described the transformation as shockingly fast. Not because Sanders is some once-in-a-generation athlete, but because he carries himself like he's already been through this before, like he's already felt the pressure, the criticism, the politics, and decided not to be defined by any of it. That's what's so compelling about this story. It's not that Shedeur is disrupting the league with highlight reels and jaw-dropping stats. It's that he's doing everything quietly, cleanly, and still becoming unavoidable. The Browns aren't just watching a quarterback develop. They're watching a culture shift unfold. And while some may still be clinging to the idea of protecting their high-price investment in Deshaun Watson, it's getting harder to justify with each passing week. Not because Watson is failing, but because Sanders is making the ceiling look higher. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable for Cleveland's front office. The public already knows. In the past, you could hide a rising rookie behind closed doors, keep the narrative controlled until you were ready to shift. But in 2024, every training camp clip, every sideline interaction, every social media post becomes data. Fans are analyzing body language, watching footwork, comparing velocity in slow-motion breakdowns. And when they see Shedeur looking sharper than the starter in multiple practices, the conversation doesn't just change, it explodes. Even the leak of the Giants' interview couldn't slow it down. In fact, it backfired completely. If the intention was to plant doubt, all it did was confirm that someone was threatened. Because editing an interview to frame a player negatively isn't just bad optics, it's desperation. And when the public senses that kind of manipulation, they usually do the exact opposite of what you intended. They double down in support. Now, fans are demanding more Shedeur, more reps, more transparency, more clarity from the Browns coaching staff. And that's where things will hit a boiling point. Because you can't tell fans to trust the process while burying a player they believe in. You can't say, we play the best guy, and then ignore the one who's outplaying expectations. The team's decision-makers are stuck in a brutal tug-of-war between short-term politics and long-term potential, between public pressure and private agendas, between protecting what's already been paid for and embracing what might still be priceless. And as much as they may try to stall, delay, or spin, one truth remains. This isn't going away. If anything, it's getting louder. There's also the question of timing. The NFL is a week-to-week league, and all it takes is one bad half, one interception-riddled start, one embarrassing loss to crack open the door for change. When that happens, and let's be honest, it always does, the public outcry won't be gentle. It'll be immediate, and Shedeur will already be standing there, prepared and unshaken, waiting for the nod. Because here's the wild part. He's not chasing the moment. He's preparing for it. He's studied the playbook. He's built the relationships. He's won the locker room. And now, the only thing left is for the people upstairs to catch up with what everyone else already sees. You can call it drama. You can call it controversy. But really, it's just the inevitable. The Browns didn't draft a backup. They drafted a mirror, one that's now forcing the organization and maybe the entire league to confront some uncomfortable truths about how narratives are made, how reputations are protected, and how greatness sometimes doesn't ask for permission. Shedeur Sanders didn't ask to be the story. But now there's no denying it. He is the story. And it's only just beginning.